Look, memory can change the shape of a room, it can change the color of a car. And memories can be distorted. They're just an interpretation, they're not a record. And they're irrelevant if you have the facts.
Someone wants me. Someone roaming the streets wants me.
Your car's uglier than I am. That didn't come out right.
Top news stories of the week. Time to find out once again with Megan Olson and News of the Week on The Al Travis Show.
Love having her on. We take the top news stories of the week that are shared, tweeted, retweeted, whatever you want to call it, and we discuss here on the program. She is Megan. Megan, thank you for being here.
Yeah, happy to be back. I'm happy to report we made it to the end of another legislative session.
Well, and let's just play a quick game. Top story that'll happen next week. It's already running the page today. They didn't get done on time. Shocker. Everyone blames somebody else. That'll be next week's number one story, right?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like they were trying to hustle to get things done. The House is kind of where things stalled the most, and I can confidently say that's most likely attributed to the month of session that they didn't have in January and February because the Democrats didn't show up. So,
see, I thought that when they were doing that, they were out for the 20 days, whatever, 22 days. And they were saying, it doesn't matter. We don't do a whole lot in those first 3 weeks. They're doing it from home. I'm thinking to myself, and then when it goes long, you're going to say, oh, we didn't need this time. Baloney. They needed the time. Mm-hmm. But the system doesn't make sense to me. You wait till the Thursday before to come up with the numbers, right? What numbers you're going to go by. The Thursday before the Monday, this is it. You don't plan that out. Why not start with that? We get together. You guys do some committee meetings. The powers that be, the governor and the rest will bully away some numbers.
It's hard for them to come up with those numbers pretty early on because they don't really know what they're trying to shove through or push through the legislative session just yet. All those crazy ideas haven't surfaced. They don't really know what the plan is.
Yeah.
And then as these bills get introduced, they're like, oh, yeah, we should, use that as leverage, or this should be something that we try and get through 100%, or, oh, this is something that we don't really need, but could be a good bargaining chip, that sort of thing. So they need that kind of lead time to flesh out what exactly are we trying to do. But
can I guess the number one story for the week? Can I guess it?
Go ahead.
I believe it was last Thursday when the governor and all the powers that be are standing behind the podium talking about the deal being made. And as you're listening to him talk, all of a sudden you hear like the Fuller brush man on the door in the back, bam, 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 bam. And then there's screaming going on. And you're like, somebody going to get the door? And then you look on the other side of the door and it's like 20, 30 DFLers who are mad as a hornet, yelling, you're going to kill our communities. Would that be the number one story? I was laughing out loud. I'm like, you think the governor's talking and there's banging on the door? It's a Republican on the other side yelling? It wasn't.
And that kind of came out of, for folks listening that don't really know what happened, this came out of striking a deal between Walz and top lawmakers in both the House and the Senate to end having Minnesota Care, which is Minnesota's health insurance, ending that for undocumented or illegal immigrants. So that deal happened. DFLers were very upset at Walz, calling him a sellout, all the things. But what they actually did is so there is no Minnesota Care. We're not going to be funding that for adults that are undocumented, but we are still, the compromise is that children will still be covered.
Well, that's the proposal now, but here's my point. You're sitting there at 34, 33, 67, 67. Literally, it's 100 to 101 between the two. And there are at least 20 to 30 DFLers screaming, you're killing our communities. Mm-hmm. I don't know that they can get by that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure that this gets passed. This is the thing they have to work on. Mm-hmm. I get your point. They compromised. Okay, only kids get it. Adults don't. But that was enough to make these guys that mad. And I used the Fatah guy, Senator Fatah, who was the Uber guy, right? He was the guy who's going to stand up for Uber. Well, I call it the Fatah maneuver. He was going to stick with those numbers like that till he got what he wanted, and he got it. He's on that side. So he's one of the ones that are yelling. I believe he'll go down all the way to closing the government down to get what he wants. He's that guy. I'm not saying right or wrong. He sticks up for what he thinks his community wants.
It's very rare we see that kind of activism at the Capitol from lawmakers themselves. I mean, folks, it's an open building. Folks will go have their protests, do their thing, activism, all good. But it's very rare that we see that from elected lawmakers. And so
I was laughing
don't
out
know what
loud.
to take from that. We have until the end of June to pass a budget before things actually shut down. But only 2 out of more than a dozen omnibus bills have passed. I believe it's housing, and veterans and military affairs have passed. But
Let me ask you this, though.
taxes, all the big ones are still out there.
It is in our Constitution. You have the session has to end with a balanced budget. That's what is in the Constitution. But does the Constitution not say by the stroke of midnight on the last Monday of May or whatever? I mean, it tells us when. The idea that they just blow by this, we're going to do this in another week or 2 weeks, or we actually have till June 30th until the government shuts down. When are they outside of the Constitution? The Constitution says you got to get her done.
July 1st. So they have until June 30th.
But what happens if they don't? The government, quote unquote, shuts down, but they keep their jobs and they didn't follow the Constitution. What's the rule for, what's the penalty for not following the Constitution?
I think just all of the, state jobs, no one gets paid. They don't get paid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's
That's
just
gonna
like
be tough on
Congress,
them.
where everything just kind of comes to a halt.
Oh,
But
then that
that's a long
Constitution
way out.
means
I don't
nothing.
want to scare our
Oh,
listeners.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just saying, if you work for the state of Minnesota, you could lose your job. You could be cut out for a while. Well, you lose your money.
Since 2011, so it's been a long time, which is
Fair
good
enough.
to know that they can come to
Yeah.
a conclusion. But we also have never had a tied House and a one-seat majority in the Senate.
Yeah, this
So
Cray. It's all crazy. Now, I don't know if you know this. It just hit me now. So Senator Mitchell was going to go back to trial after the session got done, but it's not done. Have they rescheduled that? We have a time on that? I don't even know.
I have not. Yeah, that's
I haven't heard
kind of
anything about it.
quietly went away. So
Yeah. All right.
No,
Fair enough.
no real updates on that one yet, but I would anticipate it's probably after the special. And they're in a weird spot right now where session ended yesterday, but they signed some sort of resolution saying they agreed to come back today and today only. So maybe they're taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, but I presume everybody gets their per diem and the travel miles and their hotel
It's
accommodations.
just conference committee coming back today, so it's only a small handful of lawmakers. But yeah, if they do end up going back into a special session, and they still all get their per diem, they still all get paid. But we'll see what happens today. Only 2 bills out of more than a dozen. I'm not so hopeful you can get much done in 24 hours, but.
Well, I love that. All right, those are my 2 guesses. Next week is going to be that they didn't make it, because that's what everybody's talking about today on the online. And last week's had to have been that beating on the door thing. I just thought that was hilarious.
Well, I mean, they did get a lot done this session. I mean, despite kind of what we're hearing of still special sessions, still a lot to do. They did end up closing the Stillwater prison, so that's going to be phased out through 2029. It's a very expensive prison. It doesn't have air conditioning. So they're starting to phase out of that, using those funds for other things. As we know, we have that deficit coming. There's been DWI reforms.
Well, don't go too quick. The Stillwater prison thing. Stillwater prison's been there forever. I played a softball game there with my brother and the JCs. I think it was our softball team went there and played, because they aren't a lot. They get home games all the time there because they aren't out. But what do? You just close it down. Where do these humans go? Are we paying?
Other prisons, I suppose. It's one of Minnesota's largest prisons, so it's a huge expense.
Oh no, I get and I don't know whether you should shut it down or not. AC, how long put AC in? I don't know. My point is that we send them out state and we just pay the outstate tuition to have our prisoners there. I don't know. I've read the story. They're closing it down. I haven't read what they're going to do about it. Just going to move them out.
Yeah, move them out. I don't know what they're going to do with the facility. It's over 100 years old. Very, very, very old. Very
condos.
Very
Condos in Stillwater. You get a lot of money in Stillwater for a condo.
I mean, yeah, if they can sell it off to help with this budget deficit, I guess all the better. But
condo, some developer, live in the same cell of the house. Well, my room is room 625 section block E.
They also are saving money by cutting funding from the Northern Lights Express, which I believe is the bus that runs from Minneapolis up to Duluth. It had approval of funding just 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden they're cutting it by $77 million. So
do you think that
they are trying to suck up the savings where they can.
Is that a sign that they're just going to stop that craziness, that bullet train going to Duluth and the rest and all that
they
stuff?
They only cut $77 million out of $195 million. So
okay, it's got to be the start of the end.
$120 million.
Here's what I liked is pot. Republicans said no new taxes. No new taxes. We're standing on that. But the Democrats, I presume, who propose it, brilliant. Let's raise taxes on pot. Republicans aren't going to. What do we
THC
care?
beverages, I believe, not necessarily just marijuana as a whole, but these beverages that they're seeing pop out.
See, because Republicans aren't going to battle the death on that. We don't care. We're not big pot people. But what I found interesting when I read the story, we have yet to sell any pot, right? There hasn't been a dispensary, a sale done yet. And this thing was a perfect bill. This was perfect. We had it figured out. The tax when we started was 10. It's now 15%. They haven't even sold one yet. Cannabis people, watch out. They're using you to pay off everything. This is like a sin tax back in the day. And here's the other problem. At 15%, they're saying now the pot people, and I don't know if you know them, but they're called pot people. The pot people are saying that you get to 15% tax, it'll make it so expensive, you'll probably go to the black market, which was the whole reason we got rid of this. We're going to pot anyway, is to get rid of the black market pot. And now we've taxed it so much, we're going to bring it back. Anything make sense here? Anything?
It is, rushing legislation, and this is what we end up with, a huge mess.
You know, that's going to be Megan saying, you've said that more than once. Russian legislation always ruins things. Let's go to break. We'll be back. More of the top stories with Megan's News and Review.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul. But who speaks for you? Center of the American Experiment does. Our policy fellows dig into the tough issues that matter to you and offer common sense solutions on education, taxes, crime, and energy. American Experiment is the trusted, nonpartisan voice of Minnesotans like you. We are working every day to make Minnesota a better, safer, more prosperous place. We are American Experiment. Go to americanexperiment.org to learn more.
Achieving your financial goals requires individual planning and a comprehensive approach. At Midwest Money Management, our mission is to provide you with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to feel comfortable financially today and secure about tomorrow. Learn more at MidwestMoneyManagement.com. That's MidwestMoneyManagement.com.
Securities offered through JW Cole Financial Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services offered through JW Cole Advisors Inc., Midwest Money Management, and JW Cole Financial Inc. and JW Cole Advisors Inc. are unaffiliated entities.
As in alligator. L also in alligator. But it's not alligator. It's the Al Travis Show.
And we've got our Megan in with Megan's News and Review. Megan, can we talk a moment? You might have saw this. Our fine governor, Governor Walz, made national news with his commencement address to the University of Minnesota law students. Now, you're much closer to having graduated than I'll ever be. But I have been at 2 graduations in the last 2 weekends. University of Mankato, very nice. You got the little student that speaks. You got a couple people. There was one little snark comment about cutting education funding, but it went past almost everything. I don't know if they were already bored, the kids or what, but nothing really happened. But then there were a few teachers in the back who clapped and was like, okay, good one for you. But it wasn't bad. St. Thomas had none of that. It was very inspirational, everything that was said. Then I get back and I see that Governor Walz is doing his speech. He's talking about Trump and his Gestapo tactics and picking people off street corners blindly and throwing. And then at the end, he gives this line. I have to be honest with you, you're graduating into a genuine emergency. Not exactly uplifting. I mean,
he did even acknowledge that. He was like, I know this is getting political. This is very political for a commencement address, but I would argue I wouldn't be honoring my oath if I didn't address this head on. So he acknowledged, bought into the fact that this probably isn't maybe the best idea for commencement, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Well, the politics of that seems weird. This feels really wrong. I'm doing it anyway. I don't know. Not that everything has to be, rainbows and unicorns and fluffy sparklies coming out at graduation.
I mean, it's the next chapter of all these people's lives. You don't want them to.
You're graduating into a genuine emergency. I'm like, wow. Wish I wasn't 120,000 in debt now. I mean, it was great, Gray, and he got national attention for it because. Are you running for president?
Attention, I will say the news articles about it are all, the big players in D.C. Nothing. Yeah. Crickets from Minnesota media.
Yeah, because they knew it was wrong. Everybody who watched it said, that doesn't seem like a graduation speech. We all knew he did it wrong. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. What are your thoughts? How was yours? Do you even remember yours? There's the next thing.
I didn't have one because it was the pandemic. And so everyone's like, what was your graduation like? I've been going to, it's graduation season, so I've been going to a lot of these as well. And yeah, I'm like, I didn't have one of those, so I don't really have anything to base it off of. Mine was like a drive-by. People just drove their cars by, they honked a little bit, keep your distance. We didn't want to spread the COVID back then, so.
Did anybody tell you how terrible you were graduating into an emergency? Nothing like that, nothing positive. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else to talk about today?
I mean, I did actually graduate into an emergency, a real emergency.
Well, yeah. It was funny to me. I watched it and it felt goofy. And then you watch, like you said, none of the news organizations in town covered it. It was like, okay, go by it. Anything else to discuss today, Megan?
Yeah, last thing to touch on is just what didn't happen this session. I mean, like I said, 2023, 2024, those were really historic years. A lot was pushed through, but there's still a lot left on the table now in 2025. Sports betting, something that wasn't really touched much at all. We are one of 11 states that still doesn't have it. As someone who does enjoy throwing a dollar here and there during some NBA and football games, I'm a little bit upset, but maybe next year it'll come back.
Times are changing. Again, you cannot watch any of our sporting events. Heck, wasn't FanDuel the sponsor of the Timberwolves when they were off the air? And I mean, you cannot get by it without seeing commercials. ESPN's got their own betting app. Yep. It's out there. People are doing it. They put Pete Rose, that's a baseball player. I know you're not a sports person. Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe back in as far as good standing with the sport of baseball, so they can get into the Hall of Fame because really they bet on it. Yep. But you're making massive amounts of money on it now. Times they are changing, but not here in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, no Office of Inspector General either, and that was kind of a big sticking point for Republicans. So they're pretty disappointed. It sounds like the agreement was kind of something to bolster the current fraud departments that exist in Minnesota, try and make sure that they feel supported within those agencies, but no independent Office of Inspector General was formed.
Senator Gustafson comes on this show. She announced that thing very early on. We've been backing on this program. We need an independent Inspector General. I'm going to say this, and Democrats get mad at me. These are the folks that passed on a law that was trying to get through that said if you're in the state of Minnesota and you work for us and you suspect fraud, you must turn it in. Mm-hmm. That was the rule, plain and simple. Who doesn't understand that? They voted that down on party lines. Now this Inspector General thing comes up. Let's just have an independent person be able to look at this, and they voted that down. Yeah. You tell me who's trying to stop fraud in this state and who's not. And Gustafson is a Democrat.
The bill wasn't vetted, so that's kind of their cover, is that it didn't receive the necessary hearings. But obviously there's politics and a lot more to it.
Yeah, we'd hate to go too fast. Let's just use the pot bill as an example. Hate to move too fast. All right, we got to fly. I'm out of time. Megan, appreciate you being on the program.
Yes, thanks for having me on. We will see if your predictions are correct next week on your predicted top news stories of the week. We'll be back talking about those top Minnesota news stories on the Al Travis Show with Megan's News and Review.
Dust from livestock buildings can be harmful to your animals.